Welcome back to Football Fundits and to another episode of Fantasy Premier League. In this episode, we take a look at what happened in game week 1, who were the star performers, who were the players who frustrated you, should you make that knee-jerk reaction change? I would not recommend it. And who, according to you, would be the standout player or differential going into game week 2? And finally, our team selections for game week 2. Abhishek, let's start off with you immediately. Who were your standout players?
Hey, first up, I'm kicking not myself, but I hate the fact that Reece James scored and had such a great game because it's because of him that I didn't top most of the FPL leagues because I had a fantastic game week 1. And reason being that I took one big punt, which is literally an hour before the deadline. I swapped Aubameyang out for Willian. And what that allowed me to do was that one simple swap obviously paid rich dividends in the actual swap in itself. And it also gave me an extra 6 million in the kitty where I could upgrade Wilson to a Harry Kane.
Interesting. To all the managers who do have Arsenal players currently in their squad, not just Aubameyang, right? A lot of the pick that even the suggestion that I made was, along with Kern in that one episode, was Aubameyang is good for the first 2 weeks. But looking at the fixtures after that, they have Sheffield, they have Leicester, Manchester United, Liverpool. Not the best fixtures to have. So you could probably hold on to your Willian if you have him. If you have the likes of Aubameyang, keep them in your team for one more game week, for the second game week at least. But coming to a Gabriel, 5.0, great debut again, clean sheet, goal. Hold off on any Arsenal defensive units, I would say. I can see Abhishek also has Leno, so he can hold on to that for maybe one more game week. I don't think clean sheets are guaranteed beyond the second game week, right? So I would not waste a change on a defensive asset just yet. Something very interesting, Abhishek, I'll also want to mention. A lot of managers have taken out, Trent Alexander-Arnold, more than 200,000 managers. Son more to 200,000. Werner, 250,000 plus because apparently he had a dead leg. But Lampard did say he's most likely to feature against Liverpool because that's his mentality. Looking at these knee-jerk changes, do you think it's wise to take out the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold?
Ani, the larger issue is that a knee-jerk reaction happens because you haven't built your game week 1 with a slightly longish strategy. Because this was always going to be a slightly tricky and a difficult opening to FPL, given that United and City didn't play game week 1. Now, Ani, and to illustrate my point, here's what I did, right? Game week 1 paid rich dividends for me because of that Aubameyang-Willian swap. I also had Wilfried Zaha, who I saw a goal in. But anyway, game week 2, I'm still not tempted to bring in the City assets because City play Wolves away. I'm not too confident of that result. Wolves look strong. So I'm going to actually bring in Anthony Martial for a straight swap with Timo Werner. What this allows me to do is bring in that United asset that I've always wanted to bring. And I feel Anthony Martial will pay off dividends. The second thing, like you rightly pointed out, I have burned Leno as my goalkeeper. Now, like I said, I'm not tempted to bring in a City player till maybe game week 4. Therefore, in game week 3, I'm going to swap Leno out and bring in a separate keeper. What this allows me to then do, Annie, is have an Arsenal asset, a Liverpool asset, the top asset for Liverpool, Salah, 2 Tottenham assets which are movable or flexible, and a United asset up front. So that's my strategy going into game week 4.
So rounding up your answer, and looking at the question I asked you, yes, I think taking out the likes of Trent, even Son, might be a little premature, right? I understand that Spurs blanking has affected our managers, but if you have to look at Spurs fixtures, right? Southampton away, Newcastle home, yes, Manchester United away comes in, West Ham home, Burnley away, Brighton home, West Brom away. Those fixtures are very, very tempting. I know having a very bad first game week causes a lot of emotional changes, but like Abhishek said, even if you haven't done it for the first game week, now is a good time for you to still have some sort of a plan, right, going into the second game week. For me, the standard performer was Says. The reason why I went in for a Wolves defender, something we spoke about in the last episode with me and Abhishek in it, and the one before that with me and Kern, right? Vinagre had a dilemma about starting and not starting, right? And Marca started over him. But Says at 5.2 was always a good option, looking at how solid he was towards the end of last season. And Wolves are a very solid defensive unit anyway. Even when they concede, they seldom concede more than 1. I would still recommend, if you don't have a Wolves defender, and if you are really making knee-jerk changes, right, get in a Wolves asset for game week 3. Don't make that defensive swap for game week 2, though. Like I said, so I had Roman Says in my team. I will not be taking him out or making a defensive switch for this game week. I don't want to waste a free transfer, like I said earlier, on a defender. What I want to again hit upon is the fact that you look at Harry Kane, you look at Son. I know that they had a poor game week, but just remember, guys, again, not a good time to just swap out players. It's just one game week. Son and Kane are playing Southampton. They have a good fixture run even after that. One more game week, I would hold on. I know it's tempting to then look at the likes of Aubameyang to KDB to get that City player into your side. But Aubameyang against West Ham, as you can see, is captain material for me as of now. I would not make that change. And if I do make that change, it will definitely be Werner for Martial, the way it's going as of now, depending on Lampard's press conference on his injury update. As of now, he says Werner is fighting fit and wants to play against Liverpool. One thing I want to touch about on Abby is the number of changes for Mitrovic. Mitrovic is a 6.0 player.
Yeah.
You do not waste a transfer on 6.0 right now, unless, of course, you're wildcarding, right? If you're wildcarding, I understand why you would need to make these changes. I would not recommend wildcarding right now as well, but just game week 2, but unless you had a terrible game week, right? So what do you think about making those cheap changes with your 6.0 players? Not worth it, right? Not yet.
Yeah, so the thing about Mitrovic, Ani, did come as a bit of a surprise to a lot of FPL managers. He was widely chosen, and everyone thought he would play 90 minutes, but he didn't. But if you had done a bit of reading, you'll know that he was anyway used as an impact second half substitute in that championship playoff game as well. So not too much of a surprise there. Having said that, Fulham clearly lacked any form of real threat or attack in that first game, right? And if you heard the commentators speak, they said very high chance Mitrovic will start the next game. I think it's against Leeds. It's away to Leeds. So I still keep Mitrovic in that team. If you have a decent bench and if you're not too sure, maybe rotate Mitrovic with someone. But I wouldn't advise taking a negative so early on in the season. That's just my take. Don't take a -4 even. Just make that one transfer. Unless you've really screwed your game week 1 and you've not picked very smartly, and then it's a different thing altogether. But if you've got above 50 points or about 45, 50 points, don't go for a -1. Don't go for a -4.
Yeah, so coming from all of that we gathered, so Salah should stay in your team. Looks like he's firing 8 shots on target. I don't think there's a reason to take him out yet to get that United asset. A lot of players wanted to take in Bruno Fernandes, take a downgrade. Aubameyang out 11.5, KDB in. Probably doing that next week, but not this week. Salah downgrade to 10.5 for Bruno Fernandes. I don't see myself doing that this week either. I know they're playing Chelsea, but Chelsea were not convincing enough for me looking at the way they played against the Brighton side, who were at them till they conceded that penalty, right? I would hold off on making that switch to Havertz at 8.5. If Werner's in your team again, though, like I said, good to hold on to him unless Lampard confirms he's going to be out. Did look very promising and could be one of the threats for this Liverpool side, who look like they could concede on the counter, especially, or under pressure.
Yeah, I will add one thing though, Annie. If you have Timo Werner in your team, maybe it's a good idea to swap him out only because he's also got injured, he had a dead leg, all of that. But if you actually look at it, the Chelsea-Liverpool fixture at Stamford Bridge, if you don't have Timo Werner, if you say have Havertz, who I think was at 8.5, and if you have the other assets there, I think there are other areas that can be addressed because this is not a very scary fixture. Liverpool, like we've seen this year, they're not going to keep a very tight defense, and there are going to be goals in Chelsea-Liverpool at Stamford Bridge. So I wouldn't say panic release any Chelsea player, but if there is a Chelsea player to maybe consider, I'd say Werner, only because of that dead leg and that injury and high pressure game. Liverpool will look to attack and they will look to sort of physically dominate that game. So I'd only say Werner for that.
So a message for you so far is hold on to your Spurs asset one more game week. Definitely hold on to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Don't downgrade Salah just yet. Aubameyang, you should keep him, but if you really want to get KDB in, I think that's the only option you have is to downgrade Aubameyang to Kevin De Bruyne or Sterling, right? Whichever asset you're comfortable with. If you want to get in Martial, I don't know if taking care of Harry Kane makes sense, but I guess it would still. I would still say Timo Werner is the best option to downgrade, but that is only if you have a free transfer. It's only one game week, guys. Do not panic and do not take those hits, and do not wildcard so soon. Unless you think you had a terrible week where you had 25, 30 points and you've not planned very well. Yes, then now's the time where if you're building a team from scratch, factor in United and City assets definitely into the side, and maybe look at less differentials to begin with. And if you're looking at differentials over there, your differential should be from the likes of Newcastle, who have a good run of fixtures, who have good players at maximum 5.5. Is not a differential, though. He's high ownership. Fraser is a good differential. Callum Wilson, 6.5. Striker, good differential to keep in your team. Jota, hopefully will start. Look at your Wolves assets again. Look at James Rodriguez. Looks like he's a starter. 7, cheaper than Son. Son at 9.0 if you're considering from scratch on a wild card. Look at your Everton players. Look at Lucas Dini at 6. You have a lot of these teams to consider, and I'll put out the fixtures. I put out the fixtures right here of the teams as I'm talking about it. Right, so these are the teams you should consider still if you're building from scratch after wildcarding it. Now look at your fixture list. Let's see what takes you through the international break. Build at least now for game week 6, 7, 8. Worst case scenario, injuries not including in that. Build long term. Don't make the same mistake now.
Yeah, and I also want to touch upon, while you've spoken perfectly about the players who might serve as differentials, I also want to point out that Leicester might just be a golden and slightly hidden opportunity, Leicester assets, because their next 4 games are very interesting, Annie. They play Burnley at home, City away, which is tricky, but then they play West Ham at home and then Aston Villa at home. So if you have defensive or attacking assets from Leicester, not a bad option to upgrade, because I do see a lot of goals in these games.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point. I know a lot of people are looking at Kane. And again, if you are, I would still say the same thing. Don't make that knee-jerk reaction yet. But if you're even considering downgrading Harry Kane, I would say Jamie Vardy is not a bad option. Their fixtures are good. That's West Brom at home. My bad.
Burnley at home.
Yeah, sorry, it's Burnley.
Burnley at home.
Yeah, it's Burnley at home. I know Man City away is again that doozy. But then it's West Ham at home, Aston Villa at home, like Abhishek mentioned, right? All these fixtures. Not bad to get Jamie Vardy, and he's the focal point of the attacks, right? Harvey Barnes, again, 7.0 midfielder. He had most amount of chances along with Vardy. Vardy converted 2 penalties, right? So Harvey Barnes, again, at his price point is good to consider. Again,
and if I may, after Villa at home, they have Arsenal away, but Vardy against Arsenal, we all know he loves to score against them. So
indeed,
maybe not a bad time to bring in Vardy.
And indeed, I know I spoke about Everton defenders earlier. I want to touch about Everton properly right now as well. Calvert-Lewin is still only owned by about 10% of the managers. Calvert-Lewin at that price point, again, I think it's a steal. Abhishek, what do you think? He seems to be, when you have now James Rodriguez, Richarlison, so many players, he's a focal point on top, right? Like a Vardy. Do you think he'll convert more at 7.0?
Dude, definitely. I'm kicking myself for not bringing in Calvert-Lewin, man, because he's one of those players, who I had till the last day of FPL's, window shutting. I had Calvert-Lewin, and then I got cold feet, and then I mixed around, and I brought Mitrovic in, and I spent that extra one somewhere else. But yeah, I'm kicking myself a bit, and I think Everton is a good asset to keep if you've had him for game week 1. I just question his. I think he's owned also by an equally larger number of players.
No, he's about 10. He's
10%.
It says he's got 10% ownership. I cannot still believe that it's that low, which is why I'm saying that, if you must make those changes, instead of going to your Martial, you can even look at Calvert-Lewin, because that's again 2.0 in your bank. You can strengthen your midfield for the ones making knee-jerk reactions, right? You can balance out your team across different teams who have better fixtures, like we spoke about. I'll repeat again, the likes of Leicester, like Abhishek mentioned. Newcastle are a team you can consider. Wolves have a great run of fixtures, right? This is apart from the whole Man City United conundrum and getting in Sterling and De Bruyne and maybe Jesus, but we don't know which one of the strikers is going to start. I'm not going to talk about Jesus and Aguero just about yet. I think that's all we can say about what's happened in game week 1 and possible changes for game week 2. We will definitely be doing one more episode with our captain picks, with our sure shot transfers if we end up making the transfers we told you right now, and why we ended up making them to begin with. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Abhishek, for joining us again on this one. I know FPL is something you're really gunning for this year. Don't forget to hit subscribe on our channel, guys. Hit like on our videos, turn on your notifications. Hit us up in the comment section on Twitter, on Instagram. We'll be happy to engage in conversation with you. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Also, don't forget that we have a FPL mini league of our own. We already have 175 plus strong. Don't forget, though, in order to be eligible for the prize, you must subscribe to our channel. On that closing note again, see you guys.